Xi Jinping wants to be both feared and loved by China's people. Coronavirus may change that. If censors in communist-led regimes are good for anything, it's spurring creativity. With the coronavirus stalking China, netizens have been heaping praise on Chernobyl, an American-made TV drama about the Soviet Union's worst nuclear disaster. The aim is to sneak discussion of the outbreak onto China's tightly policed internet. In less hectic times, censors will swiftly stamp out such impertinence. For the parallels with the reactor explosion in 1986 and the official cover-up that followed are painful for China's Communist Party bosses, whose system of government was cribbed from Soviet designs. But pointed comparisons keep popping up on China's social media. One urges Chinese viewers to learn from Chernobyl that a free flow of information offers more security than aircraft carriers, moon landing, and other signs of superpower might. Another contrast the soothing interview granted to the state media by the governor of Wuhan, where the epidemic began, with a speech by the hero of Chernobyl, a Soviet scientist, about the cost of official lies. Parallels are likely to continue in the real world. Back in the 1990s, Kremlin leaders scapegoated local officials and engineers, coolly blaming them for the disaster, and denying a wider cover up. In recent days, Chinese state media have dropped the heavy hints that the mayor of Wuhan, the industrial city where the virus was first detected, will lose his job. When Li Keqiang, China's prime minister, was appointed to oversee the nuclear virus control work, cynics suggested that his role was to take the fall should the virus spark an epidemic. Should the outbreak spark that pandemic, in effect, to protect President Xi Jinping. As it happens, censors should be relieved that Chinese netizens are focusing on the ills of the Soviet Union, Soviet collective leadership. It would be more dangerous if online critics were to start exploring a historical parallel closer to home, namely the way that in Chinese history, natural disasters undermined an emperor's claim to rule. More than one dynasty fell after catastrophes signal that heaven had withdrawn its favor. It was not only seen as inaptitude that when a ruler was unable to protect his people from floods or famines, or as in the 2nd century in the Han Dynasty, from repeated outbreaks of disease, probably smallpox and measles, that killed perhaps a third of the population. Such bungling showed that the emperor lacked virtue and he deserved to be overthrown. People said. Modern day Chinese may not believe that a rampaging coronavirus signals divine anger with Xi Jinping. Still, the party chief has a great deal at stake in the crisis, precisely because large claims are made about his wisdom, which is now taught in school and studied by party members, as Xi Jinping thought. These everyday state media credit Mr. Xi with personally guiding China into ever greater prosperity, modernity, and global clout. No leader has amassed such individual power since Mao Zedong, or been so lavishly praised. Chinese intellectuals accuse Mr. Xi of claiming the mantle of an emperor. They point to Mr. Xi's speeches praising Chinese traditional culture and lowering codes of modernity, codes of morality, and deference to imperial authority as handed down by Confucius and other sages. The result is an awkward hybrid. On the one hand, officials make claims about the efficiency of the collective party leadership that would be familiar to any Soviet apparatchik. To them, populist insurgencies sweeping the West is proof that multi-party elections, a free press, and democratic accountability are sources of chaos and dysfunction. As they describe it, China's system is a meritocracy and selects highly competent critics to run the country with a track record of correcting its own mistakes. Yet at the same time, the party's propagandists lay claim to a very different form of legitimacy, involving people's love for and trust in one man, Mr. Xi. So sweeping is the praise of him that it leaves essentially no room for the idea that Mr. Xi could make a serious mistake. Room for this convoluted claim to legitimacy can be heard in the context of the coronavirus outbreak, as leaders insist that their system of government is suited to tackling the disease. On January 28th, Chinese leaders hosted the head of the World Health Organization, or WHO, a UN body that played an invaluable role in demanding transparency in 2003 after China's initial cover-up of the extent of an outbreak of SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome, which led to many avoidable deaths. Wang Wei, the foreign minister, argued that assured the WHO's boss that China would be more resolute this time, thanks to the strong leadership of the party central committee with the comrade Xi at the core, and the strong advantages of the socialist system, as well as the experience of SARS. Unaccountable even to heaven. It's too simplistic to assume that all bad things that happen in China must harm Mr. Xi. The virus outbreak could end swiftly amid worldwide praise for the bravery of Chinese nurses and doctors and nurses, the self-discipline of the public, and the resolve of Chinese leaders, albeit after a slow start. If the crisis does not end well, scapegoats will be found and underlings punished. That alone would not have to shake Mr. Xi's authority, which can always be shored up with the repression, still greater ideological discipline, and nationalist propaganda. But a botched response to the crisis, to the virus, will lay bare tensions inherent in the party's hybrid claims to legitimacy. Mr. Xi's China is two things at once. It is a secretive, techno-authoritarian, one-party state ruled by gray men in unaccountable councils and secretive committees. It also claims to be a nation-sized family headed by a patriarch of unique wisdom and virtue, patriarch, in a secular 21st century version of the mandate of heaven. If forced to choose between those competing models, bet on cold bureaucratic control to win out. For Mr. Xi and his team learned their own lesson from the Soviet Union's fall, 5 years after the Chernobyl disaster. Expressions of public love for Mr. Xi, the people's leader, are all very well, but keeping power is what counts.